Dr. Elena Carter pressed her face against the cold window of the hospital ship. She watched as another shuttle came closer to their ship. The small craft was full of hurt people who needed help. Some were humans from the border colonies. Others were aliens from different planets. All of them were in pain. The hospital ship was called the HSS Nightingale. It was huge and white with big red crosses painted on its sides. Everyone in space knew what those red crosses meant. They meant the ship was there to help sick and hurt people, not to fight wars. The ship had no weapons at all. It only had doctors, nurses, and medical equipment. Elena had been a doctor for 15 years. She had seen many terrible things during the war between humans and the Zephyrian Empire. But she never got used to seeing people suffer. That was why she joined the Nightingale crew. She wanted to help anyone who was hurt, no matter what planet they came from. Captain Jake Morrison walked up behind her. He was a tall man with gray hair and kind eyes. Jake had volunteered his ship and crew for this dangerous mission. They were flying very close to enemy space where Zephyrian warships might find them. "Another load of patients coming in, Doc," Jake said quietly. "Looks like some of them are in really bad shape." Elena nodded. She could see through the shuttle windows. There were humans with bandaged heads and broken arms. There were also some Zephyrians with their blue skin burned and their forearms wrapped in medical tape. Even some Zephyrian soldiers were on the shuttle. Their own army had left them behind to die. "We will take care of all of them," Elena said. "That is what we do here." The Nightingale had been flying from planet to planet for 3 months. They went wherever people needed medical help. War was spreading across this part of space, and many innocent people were getting hurt. Homes were destroyed. Families were torn apart. Children were left without parents. Dr. Lisa Brooks ran the medical team on the ship. She was Elena's best friend and the smartest doctor Elena knew. Lisa could organize hundreds of doctors and nurses to work together like a perfect machine. She made sure every patient got the help they needed. Tony Martinez worked in the communications room. His job was to tell everyone in space that the Nightingale was a medical ship. He sent out signals every few minutes that said they were protected. Under space law, hospital ships were supposed to be safe from attack. Even enemy armies were not allowed to hurt them. The shuttle docked with the Nightingale. Elena and her medical team were waiting. As soon as the doors opened, they started moving patients to the medical bays. Elena saw a human woman holding a small child. Both had been hurt when their colony was bombed. "Please help my daughter," the woman said with tears in her eyes. "We will take care of both of you," Elena promised. Next came a Zephyrian soldier. He had lost one of his forearms and his blue blood was leaking through the bandages. Elena had never treated a Zephyrian before, but she knew their basic body structure. She started checking his wounds right away. The soldier looked surprised. "You are helping me, but I am your enemy." Elena looked into his large round eyes. "You are hurt. That makes you my patient, not my enemy." For the next several hours, Elena worked without stopping. She sewed up cuts, set broken bones, and gave medicine to stop infections. Other doctors and nurses did the same thing all over the ship. The medical bays were full of patients from many different worlds. Dr. Brooks turned one of the cargo areas into a temporary hospital ward. They needed more space because so many hurt people kept arriving. Nurses ran back and forth carrying supplies. Doctors performed surgery in room after room. Elena treated a human man who had lost his leg in an explosion. Then she helped a Zephyrian child who had trouble breathing. After that, she took care of an old woman from a farming planet who had been caught in crossfire between the two armies. "Dr. Carter, you need to rest," said Nurse Amy Johnson. "You have been working for 18 hours. Elena looked around the medical bay. There were still patients who needed help. "I can rest when everyone is taken care of." Captain Morrison came to check on the medical team. He was proud of his crew. In just 3 days, they had saved over 2,000 lives. People who would have died from their wounds were now getting better. Some would be able to go home to their families. "You are all doing amazing work," Jake told the medical team. "This is why we became doctors and nurses, to help people when they need it most." Tony Martinez called Captain Morrison on the radio. Captain, I am picking up some strange signals on my equipment. There might be ships coming toward us. Jake went to the bridge to check. Through the ship's sensors, he could see something that made his blood run cold. A whole fleet of Zephyrian warships was flying toward them. The ships were big and dark with weapons pointing forward. Tony, send out our medical protection signals right now, Jake ordered. Make sure they know we are a hospital ship. Tony's fingers moved quickly over his controls. Medical neutrality signals going out on all frequencies, Captain. I am telling them we have wounded Zephyrian soldiers and civilians on board. Jake hoped the enemy fleet would follow space law and leave them alone. Hospital ships were supposed to be protected. But as the warships got closer, Jake started to worry. The Zephyrian commander might not care about the rules. Down in the medical bay, Elena continued working on her patients. She did not know that death was flying toward them through space. She only cared about the person in front of her who needed help. The Nightingale kept broadcasting its medical signals. The big red crosses on its hull were lit up so everyone could see them. Inside the ship, doctors and nurses kept saving lives, believing they were safe under the protection of space law. They were about to learn that some enemies do not care about laws or mercy. Admiral Crickster stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the display screen in front of him. His ship was the biggest and strongest in the 5th Zephyrian battle fleet. Around him, 50 other warships moved through space like deadly metal. Sharks Crickstar was known throughout the Zephyrian Empire as a commander who never showed mercy to humans. He had destroyed many human colonies and killed thousands of their soldiers. His superiors had given him clear orders: remove all human presence from this part of space. Admiral, we have found a human ship, reported Sub-Commander Vextry. She was young for a Zephyrian officer, with bright blue skin and all 4 of her arms working at different control panels. Show me, Crickstar ordered. The main screen changed to show the HSS Nightingale. The huge white ship was clearly marked with red crosses. Bright lights made the medical symbols easy to see from far away. Even a child would know this was a hospital. Ship, sir, their signals show they are a medical vessel, Vextry said carefully. They are broadcasting protection codes. According to space law, we cannot attack them. Crickstar studied the ship. It was much bigger than most human vessels he had seen. His sensors showed it had no weapons at all. The ship was sending out radio signals that said it was treating wounded people, including Zephyrian soldiers and civilians. How many humans are on that ship? Crickstar asked. About 800 crew members, sir, plus over 2,000 patients from different worlds. Another officer spoke up. Admiral, our own wounded soldiers are on that vessel. The ship picked them up from the battle at Kepler Station last week. Crickstar turned away from the screen. In his mind, he was thinking about all the human colonies that had been built in Zephyrian space. All the Zephyrian families that had been killed when humans expanded into their territory. He remembered the orders from his government: show no weakness to the human invaders. Sir? Vexitry was waiting for orders. A human ship is a human ship, Crickster said coldly. If they cared about our people, they would not have invaded our space in the first place. They show no mercy to our colonies. We will show none to them. But Admiral, the space laws say— I know what the laws say, Crickstar snapped. But humans do not follow laws when they attack our worlds. Why should we follow laws when we attack theirs? On the Nightingale, Captain Morrison watched the enemy fleet getting closer. The ships were now close enough that he could see their weapon systems. Each Zephyrian warship had enough firepower to destroy a small city. Tony, are they responding to our signals? Morrison asked. Tony Martinez was sending message after message to the Zephyrian fleet. Nothing, Captain. They are not answering any of our calls, but they can definitely hear us. Our signals are getting through. Morrison felt ice in his stomach. In 30 years of space travel, he had never seen anyone attack a hospital ship. It was one of the oldest laws in space. Even the worst pirates usually left medical ships alone. All medical staff, this is the captain, Morrison announced over the ship's speakers. We may have a problem. Please continue with your work, but be ready for emergency procedures. Down in the medical bays, Dr. Elena Carter heard the announcement. She looked up from the patient she was treating. a young Zephyrian girl who had been hurt when her home was bombed. "What kind of emergency?" asked Nurse Johnson. Elena did not answer. She could feel the ship's engines changing speed. Captain Morrison was trying to move the Nightingale away from the approaching warships. But hospital ships were not built for speed. They were big and slow, designed to carry medical equipment, not to run from enemies. On the Zephyrian flagship, Admiral Krickstar was giving his final orders. "All ships, prepare to fire," he commanded. "Target their engines first, then destroy the entire vessel." "Sir, please reconsider," Sub-Commander Vextree said desperately. "This will be remembered as a war crime. The whole galaxy will know we destroyed a hospital ship." Krickstar looked at her with anger in his dark eyes. "The galaxy will remember that no human ship is safe in Zephyrian space. Fire when ready." The first plasma torpedoes came from 3 different warships at once. They hit the back part of the Nightingale where the engines were located. The massive ship shook like it had been hit by an earthquake. Lights went out all over the medical bays. Emergency alarms started screaming. Elena was thrown against a wall. The Zephyrian girl she had been treating fell off the medical table. Elena quickly helped the child back up and checked for new injuries. "What is happening?" the girl asked in her language. Elena did not speak Zephyrian, but she could see the fear in the child's large eyes. She held the girl's hand and spoke softly, in English, hoping her calm voice would help. Captain Morrison's voice came over the speakers again. His voice was steady, but Elena could hear the stress behind his words. "This is Captain Morrison to all crew. We are under attack. Maintain your posts and continue patient care. Help is coming." But Elena knew no help was coming. They were too far from human space. The nearest human warships were days away. More explosions rocked the ship. Dr. Brooks was in the children's medical ward when the second wave of torpedoes hit. The ceiling started to fall down. Lisa threw herself over 3 small patients, using her own body to protect them from the falling metal and sparks. A piece of sharp metal cut deep into Lisa's back, but she did not move. She kept covering the children until other nurses could help get them to safety. By then, Lisa was bleeding badly. She tried to stand up, but her legs would not work. "Take care of the children first," Lisa told the nurses. Those were her last words. Tony Martinez stayed at his communication station even as the bridge filled with smoke and fire. He kept sending the same message over and over. "This is a medical vessel. We are treating your wounded. Please stop the attack." The Zephyrian fleet did not stop. They fired for 12 long minutes. Torpedo after torpedo hit the defenseless hospital ship. Hull sections were blown apart. Medical equipment was destroyed. Hundreds of patients and medical staff died in their beds. Elena tried to help people escape, but there was nowhere to go. The ship was falling apart around them. She managed to get the Zephyrian girl and 5 other patients into an emergency pod just as another explosion destroyed the medical bay. Captain Morrison went down with his ship, as captains were supposed to do. Tony Martinez died at his station, still trying to call for help that would never come. Dr. Brooks died protecting children who would not live to see another day. The attack finally ended when there was nothing left to destroy. The HSS Nightingale was now just pieces of broken metal floating in space. Of the 847 crew members and 2,400 patients who had been on board, only 23 people survived in escape pods. Elena Carter floated in her emergency pod, badly burned and in shock. Through the small window, she could see the remains of her ship scattered among the stars. She thought about all the people who had died. Captain Morrison, who had risked his life to help strangers. Dr. Brooks, who died protecting children. Tony Martinez, who never stopped trying to save them all. The Zephyrian warships left as quickly as they had come. They had completed their mission. They had destroyed every human in this part of space. But they had also done something else. They had attacked a hospital ship. They had murdered doctors and patients who were there to heal, not to fight. They had broken one of the oldest laws in space. Admiral Krickstar thought he had won a victory. He thought he had sent a strong message to humanity about Zephyrian power. He had no idea what kind of message humanity would send back. Dr. Nathan Cross was working in his garden when the news report appeared on his communication device. He was a quiet man who lived alone in a big research facility on Earth. Most people thought he was just another retired scientist who liked to grow flowers and study peaceful things. They were wrong about Nathan Cross. The device showed pictures from the attack on the HSS Nightingale. Nathan saw the broken pieces of the hospital ship floating in space. He saw the escape pods with only 23 survivors. He saw the reporter talking about how over 3,000 innocent people had been murdered. Nathan's hands started to shake, not from fear, but from anger. He knew some of the people who had died on that ship. Captain Jake Morrison had been his friend during the border wars 15 years ago. They had served on the same ship and fought side by side against pirates and raiders. Jake had saved Nathan's life twice during those dangerous years. Dr. Lisa Brooks had been Nathan's student at the Military Medical Academy. She was one of the smartest people Nathan had ever taught. Lisa had written letters to Nathan every few months, telling him about her work helping sick people. Her last letter had said she was excited to serve on a hospital ship where she could save lives instead of watching people die in war. Dr. Elena Carter had saved Nathan's daughter 3 years ago. A terrible sickness had spread through the colony where Nathan's family lived. Hundreds of people were dying. Elena had worked for days without rest to find a cure. She had given Nathan's little girl the medicine that saved her life. These were not just names in a news report to Nathan. These were people he cared about. People who had risked their lives to help others. People who had been murdered while trying to heal the wounded. Nathan turned off the news and walked to his laboratory. The building was huge, with rooms full of scientific equipment that most people could not even name. Nathan had built machines here that could do things other scientists said were impossible. Dr. Amy Johnson was Nathan's research assistant. She was young and smart, and she believed Nathan was the greatest scientific mind she had ever met. Amy found Nathan in his laboratory, staring at a wall covered with complex mathematical equations. "Nathan, I saw the news about the hospital ship," Amy said quietly. "I am so sorry about your friends." Nathan did not answer at first. He was thinking about energy and mathematics and the laws that controlled how things worked in space. His mind could see patterns that other people could not see. He could understand how energy moved and changed in ways that seemed like magic to everyone else. "Amy, I want you to bring me all my old military research files," Nathan said. The classified ones. The projects they said were too dangerous. Amy felt worried. "Nathan, those projects were locked away for good reasons. Some of that research could be used to hurt people." "People have already been hurt," Nathan said. His voice was cold in a way Amy had never heard before. 3,000 innocent people were murdered yesterday. Doctors and patients who never hurt anyone. Nathan walked to his computer and started typing. Numbers and equations appeared on the screen faster than Amy could read them. Nathan's fingers moved like he was playing a piano, but he was composing something much more complex than music. "What are you planning to do?" Amy asked. Nathan stopped typing and looked at her. His eyes were different now. They were the eyes of a man who had decided to do something terrible and necessary. "I'm going to study the Zephyrian Empire," Nathan said. "I'm going to learn everything about their technology, their energy systems, their weapons, their cities, their entire civilization, and then I am going to find a way to destroy all of it." For the next several days, Nathan did not eat or sleep. Amy brought him food, but he barely touched it. She brought him coffee, but he let it get cold while he worked. Nathan was completely focused on understanding how Zephyrian technology worked. The Zephyrian Empire controlled 847 different star systems. They had the most advanced technology in the galaxy. Their ships were protected by energy shields that no human weapon could break through. Their cities were powered by energy systems that had worked perfectly for thousands of years. But Nathan could see things other people missed. He studied pictures of Zephyrian ships and cities. He read reports about their technology. He analyzed the energy signatures that their machines produced. Slowly, Nathan began to understand the secret of Zephyrian power. Everything in their empire was connected. Every shield generator, every weapon system, every power plant, every communication device, they all used the same type of energy frequency. It was like one giant machine spread across 847 worlds, all working together. That is their strength, Nathan said to himself. But it is also their weakness. Amy found Nathan working late one night. The laboratory was dark except for the glow of his computer screens. Nathan looked like he had not slept in weeks. "Nathan, you are scaring me," Amy said. "You need to rest. You need to eat something. You cannot work like this forever." Nathan turned to look at her. "Amy, what do you know about quantum resonance?" "It is a way that energy can move from one place to another instantly," Amy said. "But it only works under very specific conditions." Nathan smiled for the first time since the attack on the Nightingale. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had solved a very difficult puzzle. "The Zephyrians use quantum resonance to coordinate their entire empire," Nathan explained. "Every machine they build is tuned to the same frequencies. That is how they can control ships and weapons across hundreds of light years of space." Amy started to understand where Nathan's thoughts were going. If someone could disrupt those frequencies, their entire empire would collapse. Nathan finished. Every shield would fail. Every weapon would turn against itself. Every power system would overload and explode. Nathan turned back to his computer. "I need 6 more months to build what I have in mind. Maybe less if I can get the right materials." "Nathan, are you talking about destroying their entire civilization? Billions of people could die." Nathan's fingers stopped moving on the keyboard. He thought about Captain Morrison, who had volunteered his ship to help wounded people. He thought about Dr. Brooks, who had died protecting children. He thought about Dr. Carter, floating alone in an escape pod, watching her friends' bodies drift past in space. "They made a choice when they attacked a hospital ship," Nathan said. "They chose to abandon the laws that keep civilized people from becoming monsters. Now they will learn what happens when civilization abandons them." Nathan worked for 6 more months. He designed machines smaller than grains of sand. He created energy patterns that could hide inside normal objects. He built a control system that could send signals across the entire galaxy. Amy watched her teacher change from a peaceful scientist into something harder and colder. Nathan was still brilliant, maybe even more brilliant than before. But now his genius was focused on destruction instead of creation. "What are you calling this project?" Amy asked one day. Nathan looked at the names on his computer screen. 847 crew members and 2,400 patients had died on the Nightingale. Their names were now part of Nathan's weapon system, encoded into the very heart of his creation. "I am calling it justice," Nathan said. "And every person who died on that hospital ship will be remembered when it activates." The Zephyrian Empire had no idea what was coming for them. They thought they were safe behind their powerful shields and advanced technology. They thought humans were too weak and primitive to threaten their great civilization. Nathan Cross was about to prove them very, very wrong. The quantum pulse reached the first Zephyrian outpost 17 minutes after Nathan sent it from Earth. The signal was invisible and silent, but it carried the power to destroy an entire civilization. On Mining Station Beta 7 at the edge of Zephyrian, Space Chief Engineer Vexcol was checking the power systems when every screen in the control room suddenly turned red. Warning alarms started screaming throughout the facility. "What is happening?" Vexcol shouted over the noise. His assistant tried to read the error messages, but they were appearing faster than anyone could follow. "Sir, all of our power generators are overloading at the same time. The shields are failing. The life support systems are turning themselves off." The tiny disruptors that Nathan had hidden in their medical supplies 8 months ago were now activating. They attached themselves to the station's energy systems and began creating feedback loops that grew stronger every second. "Emergency shutdown," Vexcol ordered. "Cut power to everything." But it was too late. The quantum resonance had already started. The station's own power systems were now working against themselves. Generators that had run smoothly for decades suddenly exploded in showers of sparks and flame. The same scene was happening across the entire Zephyrian Empire. On world after world, space station after space station, Nathan's hidden weapons were waking up and beginning their work of destruction. Admiral Crixtar was on the bridge of his flagship when the Cascade failure reached his battle fleet. He was planning another attack on human colonies when Sub-Commander Vextri screamed in terror. "Admiral, our shields are collapsing." Krixatar spun around to look at the main display screen. All around his flagship, the other ships in his fleet were sparking and smoking. Their protective energy shields were flickering and dying. "What is causing this?" Krixatar demanded. Before Vextri could answer, their own ship's weapon systems began firing randomly. Plasma cannons that were supposed to aim at enemies were now shooting at other Zephyrian vessels. The fleet that had destroyed the Nightingale was now destroying itself. "Sir, I am detecting massive system failures across the entire Empire," Vextri reported, her voice shaking with fear. "Every world, every station, every ship. They are all failing at the same time." Krixatar watched through the bridge windows as his flagship's sister ship exploded in a ball of orange fire. Pieces of metal and machinery scattered in all directions. The crew of that ship, over 3,000 Zephyrians, died in seconds. "This is impossible," Krixatar said. "Our technology is perfect. Our systems have worked for thousands of years." "Admiral, we are receiving reports from the homeworld," another officer announced. "Empress Vexandra is requesting immediate assistance. The capital city's power grid has collapsed. The orbital defense platforms are falling from the sky." On Zephyr Prime, the capital world of the Empire, Empress Vexandra stood in her palace watching her civilization die. Through the great windows, she could see the city below. Lights were going out in every building. Hovercars were falling from the sky as their engines failed. The great factories that had built the Empire's warships were exploding one after another. "Your Majesty, we have lost contact with 90% of our star systems," reported her chief advisor. "The destruction is spreading faster than light. It is as if our own technology has turned against us." Vexandra was a proud ruler who had never shown fear, but now her hands were shaking. "How is this possible? Who has the power to do this to us?" The answer came from her intelligence minister. "Majesty, we have detected the source of the attack. It came from the human homeworld. The signal was transmitted using the same frequency as their medical neutrality broadcasts." Vexandra understood immediately. This was revenge for the attack on the hospital ship. The humans had somehow turned the Zephyrian Empire's greatest strength, their unified technology, into their greatest weakness. Across the galaxy, Nathan cross-watched the destruction through his monitoring systems. His computers showed him reports from every Zephyrian world. The cascade failure was spreading exactly as he had planned. On Kepler 7th, the energy plants that powered 12 million homes exploded in sequence, leaving the planet in darkness. On Industrial Station Gamma, the weapons factories that built plasma cannons were destroyed by their own products. On Agricultural World Delta, the weather control systems went crazy, creating massive storms that devastated the farming colonies. "Nathan, the casualties must be in the billions," Amy said, tears streaming down her face. "You have destroyed their entire civilization." Nathan's expression did not change. He was reading a report about Admiral Krixatar's fleet. The ships that had attacked the Nightingale were now floating debris in space. "Dr. Brooks died protecting children who were not even her own species," Nathan said calmly. "Captain Morrison died trying to save people who were supposed to be his enemies. They showed more compassion in their last moments than the Zephyrian Empire showed in its entire history." The destruction continued for 6 hours. Nathan's disruptors caused every piece of Zephyrian technology to turn against itself. But Nathan had built one final element into his design. The disruptors would burn themselves out after exactly 24 hours. This was not genocide. It was a demonstration. When the destruction finally stopped, the mighty Zephyrian Empire was gone. Their fleets were scattered wreckage. Their cities were dark and powerless. Their industrial capacity was destroyed. The empire that had controlled 847 star systems was now hundreds of isolated worlds, with no way to communicate or coordinate with each other. But the life support systems had been restored. The medical facilities were working again. The Zephyrians would survive, but they would never again be a threat to anyone. Commander Richards brought Nathan the final casualty reports. "The Zephyrian military has been completely destroyed. Their government has collapsed, but civilian casualties were much lower than expected. Your 24-hour limit saved billions of lives. Nathan nodded. He had not wanted to become a monster like Admiral Crickster. He had wanted to deliver justice, not commit genocide. 3 days later, the first Zephyrian surrender envoys arrived at human space diplomatic stations. They came in small, damaged ships, begging for mercy and offering complete surrender. The war that had raged for decades was over, not because of treaties or negotiations, but because one side no longer had the power to fight. Dr. Elena Carter was working in her new medical facility when she received a message from Nathan. It was short and simple. They have been remembered. Attached to the message was the crew manifest of the HSS Nightingale. Every name was highlighted in blue light, the color of remembrance in human culture. Elena looked at the names of her friends and colleagues. Captain Morrison, who had never abandoned his duty. Dr. Brooks, who had died protecting children. Tony Martinez, who had never stopped trying to save them all. The galaxy would remember them now. The attack on the hospital ship had shown that humanity could be compassionate healers who would risk everything to save lives. But Nathan's response had shown something else. When that compassion was attacked, when healers were murdered for the crime of showing mercy, humanity could reach across the stars and make entire empires burn. The Zephyrian Empire had learned that some actions have consequences beyond imagination. They had attacked a hospital ship, thinking it would make humans afraid. Instead, they had awakened something in humanity that would change the galaxy forever. Future civilizations would look at the ruins of the Zephyrian Empire and remember this lesson. Compassion and mercy are not signs of weakness. They are gifts that should be treasured and protected. Because when someone destroys those gifts, when someone murders healers and attacks hospitals, they might discover that the gentle hands that save lives can also build weapons that make empires fall. The Nightingale's crew had been avenged. Their names would shine in the historical records as heroes who died trying to heal their enemies, and Admiral Crickstar's name would be remembered too, as the fool who thought attacking a hospital ship would make humanity surrender. Instead, it had made them unstoppable. Nathan Cross stood in front of a table covered with tiny devices. Each one looked like a grain of sand, but under a microscope, Amy could see they were incredibly complex machines. Nathan had spent 8 months creating these quantum resonance disruptors, and now he had millions of them ready. "How do they work?" Amy asked, picking up one of the containers. It felt empty, but she knew it contained thousands of the microscopic devices. "Each disruptor will attach itself to a Zephyrian energy system," Nathan explained. "They will hide there, completely invisible and inactive, until I send them the activation signal. When that happens, they will cause every piece of Zephyrian technology to destroy itself." Amy set the container down carefully. "But how do we get them into Zephyrian space? Their border security is very tight. They search everything that comes into their territory." Nathan smiled. It was the cold smile that Amy had learned to fear. "That is the beautiful part of this plan. The Zephyrians will deliver my weapons themselves." Commander Paul Richards arrived at Nathan's laboratory the next morning. Paul was the only military officer that Nathan still trusted. They had worked together during the war, and Paul understood that sometimes extreme actions were necessary. "Nathan, I got your message," Paul said. "You said you have a way to end the war with the Zephyrians." "More than end it," Nathan replied. "I have a way to make sure they never threaten innocent people again." Nathan showed Paul the quantum disruptors and explained how they worked. Paul listened carefully, asking questions about technical details and possible problems with the plan. "Deployment will be the hardest part," Nathan said. "I need to get these disruptors to every major Zephyrian world and space station. That means hundreds of different locations across their empire." Paul nodded. "I can help with that. We have trade, ships that go into Zephyrian space. We also send medical supplies and food aid to some of their colonies." "Perfect," Nathan said. "The disruptors can be hidden in anything. Food containers, medical equipment, even children's toys. The Zephyrians will never detect them because they remain completely inert until activation." Over the next few months, Nathan's plan began to spread across the galaxy. Trade ships carried containers of grain that looked normal, but were filled with millions of disruptors. Medical supply vessels brought bandages and medicines that had the tiny devices woven into the fabric and mixed into the chemical compounds. Dr. Amy Johnson helped coordinate the distribution. She felt sick every time she sealed another container of supplies that contained Nathan's weapons. But she also remembered the images of the destroyed hospital ship. "Nathan, I keep thinking about all the innocent Zephyrians who will be hurt," Amy said one day. "Their children, their doctors, their teachers. They did not attack the Nightingale." Nathan looked up from his work. "Do you think Dr. Carter thought about innocent people when she was treating wounded Zephyrian soldiers on that hospital ship? Do you think Captain Morrison cared about politics when he risked his crew to save Zephyrian civilians?" "That is different," Amy said. "They were trying to help people." "And look what happened to them," Nathan replied coldly. "They were murdered for showing mercy. The Zephyrian Empire made it clear that they do not value innocent life. Now they will learn what it feels like to have their innocent people threatened." The distribution continued for 8 months. Nathan's disruptors spread throughout Zephyrian space like an invisible infection. They attached themselves to power generators in major cities. They hid inside the shield systems of warships. They embedded in communication networks and weapon factories. Zephyrian security forces never detected them. The devices were too small and too clever, designed by Nathan's genius to avoid every scanning method the Empire used. They became part of the Zephyrian technology infrastructure, waiting silently for their moment to activate. Commander Richards brought Nathan regular reports about the deployment progress. "We have successfully delivered disruptors to 98% of our target locations," Paul said. "The remaining systems should be infected within the next few weeks." Nathan studied a map of Zephyrian space. Red dots marked every location where his disruptors had been successfully placed. There were thousands of red dots spread across 847 star systems. "What about their military headquarters?" Nathan asked. "Completely penetrated," Paul replied. "Our medical aid shipment last month delivered disruptors to every major military installation, their fleet command centers, their weapon research facilities, even Admiral Krickstar's flagship." Nathan felt satisfaction when he heard that name. Admiral Krickstar had given the order to attack the Nightingale. Soon, Krickstar would learn what it felt like to be helpless and defenseless. Amy walked into the room carrying a cup of coffee for Nathan. She had been trying to take care of him during these months of preparation, making sure he ate and slept at least a little bit. "The deployment is almost complete," Nathan told her. "Soon I will be able to activate the system." "When?" Amy asked. Nathan checked the calendar on his computer. 1 year ago today, Admiral Krickstar ordered the attack on the HSS Nightingale. I think that would be an appropriate day for justice. Nathan had designed the activation system to be as symbolic as it was deadly. The quantum pulse would be transmitted on the exact same frequency that the Nightingale had used for its medical neutrality broadcasts. The message would contain the identification codes of every person who had died in that attack. "The signal will carry the names of all 847 crew members and 2,400 patients," Nathan explained. "Their deaths will become the key that unlocks the destruction of the Zephyrian Empire." Amy sat down heavily in a chair. "Nathan, once you do this, there will be no going back. The galaxy will never be the same." "The galaxy changed when they attacked that hospital ship," Nathan said. "I am simply finishing what Admiral Krickstar started." Nathan spent the final weeks preparing his transmission equipment. The quantum pulse needed to be powerful enough to reach every corner of Zephyrian space simultaneously. Nathan built transmitters that could focus energy in ways that other scientists said were impossible. Dr. Carter, one of the survivors of the Nightingale attack, had recovered from her injuries and was working at a new medical facility. Nathan sent her a message explaining what was going to happen. "Dr. Carter, in 48 hours, the people who murdered your friends will face justice. Every person who died on the Nightingale will be remembered. Their names will light up the sky as the Zephyrian Empire falls." Elena Carter read the message 3 times before she understood what Nathan was planning. She tried to call him to ask him to reconsider, but Nathan had already shut down all communications. He was in final preparation mode and nothing would distract him from his purpose. On the morning of the anniversary, Nathan stood in front of his control panel. Amy stood beside him, tears in her eyes. Commander Richards was there too, knowing that history would judge them all for what was about to happen. "Are you sure about this, Nathan?" Paul asked one last time. Nathan looked at a picture on his desk. It showed the crew of the Nightingale before their final mission. Captain Morrison was smiling. Dr. Brooks had her arm around a young nurse. Dr. Carter was holding a Zephyrian child she had helped heal. "They were murdered for showing compassion," Nathan said. "The galaxy needs to remember that some actions have consequences that reach across the stars." Nathan placed his hand on the activation control. The quantum pulse was ready. Across Zephyrian space, millions of tiny disruptors waited for their signal. "For Jake Morrison," Nathan said quietly. "For Lisa Brooks. For Tony Martinez. For all the healers who died trying to help their enemies." Nathan pressed the control. The signal raced across the galaxy at the speed of light, carrying death to an empire that had forgotten the meaning of mercy.